All right, let's jump into the deep dive today. We're all charged up, ready to explore Lucid Motors. You've been seeing them everywhere lately, and you're probably wondering, can they actually keep this up? Is this explosive growth going to last? We're going to try and figure that out today using a Motley Fool article as our roadmap. It's called, Is Lucid's Explosive Growth About to Hit a Speed Bump? Catchy title, right?
Definitely grabs your attention. And the Motley Fool is really good at breaking down investing topics, making them easy to understand. So it'll be interesting to see their take on Lucid's trajectory.
For sure, for sure. So the article starts off with some pretty impressive numbers. Like, get this, 70% increase in EV deliveries year over year in 2024. And that's not all. They set record deliveries every single quarter. Now, that's got to be good news for a company that's been navigating some, bumps in the road, right? Like, we all know about the supply chain issues, and competition in the EV space is just getting fiercer.
Yeah, it's a testament to their resilience for sure. I mean, to pull off those numbers despite all those obstacles, it shows they're adaptable, they're figuring things out, and that kind of growth is critical for them, especially now, because the EV market is kind of, well, it's at a crossroads, I guess you could say. Like J.D. Power, they're predicting that the U.S. market share for EVs will stagnate in 2025, kind of hover around 9.1%, which is interesting because that's actually quite a bit lower than President Biden's goal of 50% EV market share by 2030.
Huh, yeah. That is a pretty big difference. What do you think is driving that conservative prediction from J.D. Power?
Well, they point to a few things. One of the big ones is the phasing out of those federal tax credits for EVs. Those were a big incentive for a lot of buyers. In fact, J.D. Power's research found that 64%, a full 64% of premium EV buyers said those tax credits were like a major factor in their decision-making. So taking those away, it's bound to have some impact, right?
Yeah, I mean, those tax credits definitely made a difference for me when I was considering an EV. It's a big chunk of change, especially for those higher-end models.
Right, exactly. And then there's also this uncertainty swirling around potential new tariffs. So you've got the tax credits disappearing, maybe some new tariffs popping up. It kind of creates this hesitation, in the market, makes people think twice before jumping in.
Makes total sense. So it sounds like maybe a bit of a bumpy road in the short term for the EV market overall. But what about the long game? What's the long-term outlook looking like?
Well, J.D. Power, they're actually predicting a pretty significant jump to 26% market share by 2030. So even though it's not quite hitting that 50% target that President Biden was hoping for, it still represents some pretty substantial growth, right?
Yeah, for sure. So some speed bumps maybe in the near future, but overall, positive signs for EVs in the long run. Okay, let's bring it back to Lucid specifically for a sec. They just rolled out this new Gravity SUV, and let me tell you, it is a looker.
Oh yeah, I've seen the pictures. It's sleek. And they're already seeing some promising early numbers too. Just in January 2025 alone, they delivered 665 vehicles, and 50 of those were the Gravity, which is pretty impressive considering it just hit the market.
Yeah, that's a good start. But to really grasp what Lucid's capable of, I think we got to talk about their CEO, Peter Rawlinson. This guy, he's got some seriously ambitious goals. He's talking about producing 1 million EVs a year. 1 million.
Wow, that's a huge leap from where they are now. You think they could actually pull that off?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Let's dive into that next. So 1 million EVs a year, that's a bold vision, to say the least.
It is. It is. But to really understand if it's even possible, we got to kind of look at the financial side of things, right?
Yeah, let's get down to brass tacks. Are they actually, making money?
Well, that's the thing, isn't it, Lucid? Like a lot of these newer EV companies, they're still burning through cash, investing heavily in R&D, expanding their operations, all that.
So not exactly a safe bet for the risk-averse investor at this point.
Right, exactly. Investing in Lucid right now, it's definitely a high-risk, high-reward kind of situation, something you probably only want to do with a small portion of a diversified portfolio, not put all your eggs in one basket.
Okay, I'm getting that. So high risk, but what about the potential rewards? What makes Lucid stand out besides, the ambition?
Well, we touched on their battery tech earlier, but it's worth really diving into that a bit more, because that's one of their biggest strengths for sure.
Yeah, break it down for me. Like, pretend I'm, I don't know, totally new to the whole EV thing.
Okay, so imagine this Lucid's batteries. They're like the super athletes of EV batteries, right? They're incredibly energy dense, meaning they can pack a ton of energy into a relatively small and light package.
Okay, I'm following you. So more power, less bulk. But how does that actually translate to a better driving experience?
Range. That's the big one. Remember all those worries about range anxiety, running out of juice before you reach your destination? With Lucid's batteries, you can go further on a single charge, making them, way more practical for everyday use. And not only that, they recharge faster, too, which is a huge plus. Nobody wants to be stuck waiting around for hours.
So longer range, faster charging, yeah. That's addressing some of the major hurdles for people considering EVs, for sure.
Right, it's like they're anticipating those concerns and knocking them down, which is smart.
Definitely smart. But going back to that million EVs a year goal, I mean, tech is one thing. But to actually produce that many cars, they're going to need to become masters of manufacturing, right?
Oh, absolutely. Scaling up production, that's where it gets really tricky. In the Motley Fool article, they talk about this, how Lucid's planning to expand, but also how complex that whole process is. I mean, scaling up any manufacturing operation is tough, but when you're talking about EVs, it's a whole other ballgame.
Yeah, because the tech is constantly evolving, so you're trying to ramp up production while also making sure you're not using outdated tech and maintaining quality and all that.
Exactly. It's a constant balancing act. And then you layer on top of that their plans for those more affordable models.
Oh yeah, those mid-size sedan and crossover starting around $15,000, that could be a real game changer, opening them up to a whole new market.
For sure it could. But it also raises questions, right? Can they actually make those cars at that price point and still turn a profit, especially with those federal tax credits going away? That's a big factor.
Yeah, it's a lot to juggle cutting-edge tech, ambitious production goals, a competitive market. And then you throw in the ever-changing government policies. It's like a giant puzzle.
It is. And Lucid's right in the middle of it, trying to put all the pieces together.
So for someone who's really interested in Lucid as an investment, what's the bottom line here?
I'd say this, Lucid, they're still early in their journey. And while their growth has been amazing, they're not out of the woods yet. They're taking some big risks, making big bets, and those could pay off hugely. But there's also the potential for things to go south.
High risk, high reward, as we said before we move on. Any other insights on their overall strategy?
I think it's important to note that Lucid, they're not just building cars, They're building a brand, almost a lifestyle, you know what I mean? Like a vision of a more sustainable future. They're really carefully cultivating this image of luxury, performance, sustainability. It's resonating with a certain type of buyer, for sure.
Yeah, it's not just about the nuts and bolts. It's the whole package, the experience.
Right, exactly. And that brand building, it's crucial for them to differentiate themselves, especially in such a crowded market.
Makes you wonder, though, what will really set them apart from, say, Tesla or Mercedes? They're all pushing the boundaries in their own ways.
That's the question, isn't it? And it's one we'll dig into more when we talk about the competitive landscape. But for now, I think it's safe to say Lucid's made their mark. They've got a bold vision, the tech to back it up. Whether they've been deliver on all that, well, that's what we're all waiting to see.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground: impressive growth, ambitious goals, potential pitfalls, and of course that focus on building a premium brand. I think we've given our listeners plenty to chew on.
Yeah, definitely. And we haven't even gotten to the competitive landscape yet.
Oh, right, there's more. Let's take a quick breather here, and then we'll pick up the conversation in part 3. We'll dive into how Lucid stacks up against its rivals and what the future might hold for this, exciting company. Okay, so we're back, ready to wrap up this deep dive into Lucid Motors. We've talked about their tech, their goals, all that. But now let's zoom out a bit, look at the bigger picture. What's the competitive landscape look like for them?
Well, it's a crowded field, that's for sure. And it's getting more competitive all the time.
You've got Tesla, obviously, the big dog in the yard. But then you also have the traditional automakers like Mercedes, BMW. They're all electrifying their lineups pretty aggressively. And then you can't forget about all those startups popping up left and right, each with their own angle.
Yeah, it's a real mix. And for Lucid, that means standing out, carving out their niche. It's more crucial than ever.
And it seems like they're really going for that luxury market, that buyer who's not just looking for a car. They're looking for like an experience, a statement.
Right, exactly. They're selling that aspirational lifestyle, the cutting-edge tech, the sustainability angle.
And it makes sense. I mean, that luxury EV segment, it's still relatively uncrowded, especially compared to the mass market.
It is, but it's also a very demanding market. Those buyers, they have high expectations.
They want the best of the best, and they're willing to pay for it, so Lucid can't afford to cut any corners.
Absolutely. So far, they seem to be doing a good job of, building that reputation, focusing on that advanced tech, that sleek design, and emphasizing those sustainable practices.
Yeah, and they're even being strategic about their physical presence, those showrooms. They're like super minimalist, high tech.
Yeah, it's all about curating that experience, right? Making it feel exclusive, like you're part of something special.
Okay, but image is one thing. What about the substance? How do Lucid's cars actually measure up to the competition?
Well, from the early reviews and tests, it seems like they're holding their own, for sure. People are praising the performance, the range, the interiors are supposed to be super luxurious.
And that battery tech we talked about, that seems to be giving them a real advantage in terms of range and charging speed.
It is, and they're not slowing down either. They've been hinting at even more advanced battery tech in development.
So they're staying ahead of the curve, which is essential in this market. I mean, things are moving so fast.
It's all about innovation, anticipating what's next, who can meet those evolving needs the fastest.
It makes you wonder what the EV landscape will even look like in a few years. Will Lucid still be a major player?
Tough to predict. There are so many factors at play: technology, regulations, consumer trends, the economy.
Yeah, it's a dynamic market, that's for sure. But that's also what makes it so exciting, right?
Absolutely. I mean, there's so much potential for disruption. New players could emerge, maybe some unexpected partnerships, even totally new business models. Who knows?
Flying cars, maybe. Just kidding. But seriously, the future of transportation, it's going to be wild. And Lucid's right in the thick of it.
They are. So for our listener, the one taking this deep dive with us, what do you hope they take away from all this?
I'd want them to understand that Lucid's facing some real challenges, but they're also incredibly well positioned. They've got the tech, they've got the vision, and they're definitely not afraid to push boundaries.
Yeah, I agree. And I think their focus on building that brand, that premium experience, that could be a key differentiator for them. It's not just about the car, it's about the whole lifestyle, you know?
And they're doing all this at a time when sustainability is top of mind for so many people.
Right, they're tapping into that desire for vehicles that are not only stylish and high-performing, but also environmentally responsible.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive into Lucid Motors, let's come full circle. Can they sustain this incredible growth? Is it possible?
It's the big question. And honestly, there's no easy answer. We've seen a company with huge potential. They've got the talent, the innovation, a clear vision, but they're also up against fierce competition.
It's going to be fascinating to see how it all plays out. And for our listeners, we encourage you to keep digging, keep learning, stay curious, and join the conversation. What do you think about Lucid's chances? Head over to our website, our social media, share your thoughts. We love hearing from you.
Absolutely. Your insights, they add so much to the conversation and help us all understand this industry better.
Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.